Okay, welcome to the Keto Bible Study Week 1,
Hello.
chapters 1 through 3. Gracie was gracious enough to think of this idea, and so many people have decided that they think this is a great idea too, so here we are. We are recording, so if you replay, that's awesome. I'm going to mute everyone. If you want to chime in or whatever, Gracie, I'm going to turn it over to you. It's totally cool, Heather, if you only did chapter 1. We're just going to talk. It's kind of all inclusive anyway, but it's not a big deal. But if you guys want to chime in, obviously unmute yourself or use the chat to chat. Totally fine on your videos or off. It's totally cool. I am rocking the no shower happy hour today, so I am going to mute y'all and we will get going. Mute all. And Gracie, I need to unmute you. Okay, Gracie, take it away, girlfriend.
Take it away. All right. Well, like I said earlier, we're just tuning in. I ate lean and green over the last year and basically followed the Dr. Atkins high protein, low carb. I try to keep my carbs down to about 20 a day. A year ago, last Thanksgiving, I decided, well, I could just go back to the regular way of eating and got sugar back into my system. I am a sugarholic, and my name is Gracie. And sugar is my nemesis. So for about a year, till this January, so a year ago last Thanksgiving to this January, I ate a normal diet, and I have suffered greatly. I gained back 40 pounds. My whole body hurt, my joints, the inflammation, the water retention, feeling lethargic, just really feeling bad overall. So I said, okay, I got to get back to eating lean and green again. And then I really started picking up a lot about the keto diet, and then found Mandy through Facebook, like probably the rest of you have, and started looking into that. I got the Ketogenic Bible, and I read up through the first 3 chapters. And like I had mentioned earlier, one of the most profound things that has hit me so far is that you can eat a low carb, high protein diet, but it's the fats that really makes the difference.
Yeah, I agree.
So, anyway, okay, so basically the intro was interesting. It just gives an overall view of what you can expect from the book. Talks about the different fuel sources, proteins, carbs, carbohydrates.
And for those that don't know, those are, I'm sure you guys have read, but those are your macros. So when I talk about macros, those are what a macro makes up.
So, and then chapter 2 basically was the history of how the keto diet came to be, and interesting facts like people in the Depression, they didn't have much, and they, for the most part, ate protein and vegetables, very few sugars and high dense carbs, because it just wasn't there. And those people, you look at the pictures from the people in the Depression era, they're all skinny. You never saw an overweight person, right? And we never started seeing obesity in our country up until 1980s. I graduated high school. I'm going to tell you this. We'll be 60 in May, so it was 1977 I graduated. And I can only remember 2 adults in my whole life that were obese. It was a rarity. Nowadays, obesity in the United States is just out of control.
Yeah.
Like my eating habits this last year.
Hey, it's fine. I'm addicted to Chipotle burritos, as everyone knows. So how do we go through it? I just have stuff highlighted, and
I did too. And then I took pictures on my cell phone so I could kind of hit. I mean, what do you all like feel like how we should do this? Because I'm new to doing a book club, and I highlighted points that I thought were interesting, like Mandy has. But basically, I think the whole crux of I think for myself, because this is a learning process, learning the whole ketogenic lifestyle, is really understanding how the macronutrients along with the electrolytes really affect our lives.
Yeah.
And that's where you're the expert, Mandy.
Thanks.
So
I think
just jump to chapter 3, because that's the basic of our diet. Like I said, intro is just the intro. Chapter 2 is the history. And anybody have any questions on those two things?
Well, I think because some only people read chapter 1 because they thought we were doing only one because I know
Right.
we switched it. So I'll just do like a pretty much a base, like an overview,
Okay.
or whatever. So basically, there's 3 types of ketones that your body produces, but the most important one that your blood absorbs is the beta hydroxybutyrate, which is BHB. So if you ever hear me talk about BHB, that's what it is. It's also the main component in the exogenous ketones I talk about. I'm sure everyone on here knows what exogenous ketones are, but there's also 2 types now of ketones. Endogenous ketones are the ones that your liver produces, and exogenous ketones are the ones you can drink. So that's why when I say if you want to really just like do the ketogenic lifestyle easily, you can drink beta hydroxybutyrate, which is the main component in exogenous ketones, to get yourself into ketosis. So there's that. A lot of people, so like the normal carbohydrate diet, in terms of like how elevated should your blood ketone levels be, the normal carbohydrate level is 0 to 0.4 millimolar. So like anybody that's testing, if you're between 0 and 0.4, or some readers have low, that means you don't have any in your bloodstream at all. That would be that. Then there's like the fasting or ketogenic diet type millimolars. Those are 0.5 to 7, right? So when you're fasting or when you're drinking exogenous ketones now, or forcing your body into nutritional ketosis, which nutritional ketosis is when you're doing the diet perfectly, having your macronutrients, which is your carbs, proteins, and fats all dialed into what yours is that's the optimal state of ketosis, anywhere between there. And then diabetic ketoacidosis, which is not something that you really have to worry about, because it's pretty hard to get there unless you're drinking 200 servings of max a day. Oh, Heather, sorry, we're referring to page 11. I guess that would be helpful too. See, we're learning how to do a book club at the same time. So that's diabetic ketoacidosis. So like, I'm sure a lot of your friends or whatever are like, don't do the keto diet, you're gonna die. Like, a lot of people confuse therapeutic ketosis and the ketoacidosis. So, and then even like a lot of groups I see, they're saying that like liver's an issue and, stuff like that. Like even, it's just really important. And then ketosis, basically, like I highlighted this part because I thought that was pretty cool, just because I like to like highlight things that I want to like reiterate to you, is ketosis is obviously 0.5 to 7 millimolars, but how the state of ketosis is induced is really dependent on people's various degrees of ketosis, varies individual to individual. So like, it really depends on your physical activity, that I'm reading from page 13 because I like connected the 2. It's difficult whether someone will get into ketosis from macronutrient ratios alone without knowing other individual variables such as physical activity level, total caloric intake, and health conditions. So I just want to reiterate that, because like this is the fundamental reason why I don't teach macros and really encourage drinking exogenous ketones, because it's hard to get into nutritional ketosis without really being laser focused on what you're consuming. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Hi. So I just
I
have a
talk a
question.
lot, so just interrupt me, and anyone obviously unmute yourself, but like these are points that I just wanted to like make. But go ahead.
So when I started back into eating protein, fats, and low carbs, I mean, I hadn't got my ketone drinks yet.
Yeah.
So of course, I went through the 4 days of hell with the keto flu,
Yep.
and I, since I'm a nurse, I have access to keto strips, urine dipstick,
Yeah.
which have ketones on there.
Right.
So I mean, now so it's been since the 2nd of January, so 6-7 days, because I don't know what day it is right now.
It's
I
Sunday.
work night shift, so on my days off, I don't know what day it is. I just know I go back to work Monday night. Anyway, so say 6 days of eating keto, and when I tested myself this morning, I mean, my little strip turned purple, just boom, dark purple within 2 seconds. So do you know, Mandy, like if somebody is using the urine dipsticks
Uh-huh.
versus the machine that you guys use,
Yep.
like I know I'm in ketosis,
Right.
but I don't know the number. Does it, if that strip shows a dark purple, does it matter?
So, okay, yeah. So, like, this is why I encourage testing your blood because, okay, so Sarah actually broke it down beautifully. I was trying to look for an amazing analogy, and she just had this great explanation. So, beta hydroxybutyrate is absorbed in the blood. When you're drinking beta hydroxybutyrate or producing it from your liver, that's your fuel source, right? Because you hear how I always say, like, use ketones as a fuel. So when you're fueling your body, regardless of where it comes from, you want to test the fuel source. When you are excreting that fuel source and you're testing the exhaust. So just because you're peeing out ketones, yes, that's an indicator that you are in ketosis, but you're not getting an idea of how much you're using versus testing your blood. So if
Okay,
you
so
have
blood
like
testing shows how much you're using of your ketone
it shows how much is in your bloodstream.
in your.
But when you are testing the strips and like showing that you're peeing them out, that means that you're excreting them. You want your elevated blood ketone levels to be high, not peeing them out. So like if I took a test strip because I have been fasting and because I do the ketogenic diet and because I do exogenous ketones, for instance, today my blood meter was 5.6. But if I peed on a stick, I probably am using all of those ketones. So that means I'm fat adapted. So I'm not excreting anything. So I would probably pee clear.
Well, how does that make sense though to me? See, I guess that's the crux of what I don't understand. If you're peeing out ketones and it's the waste byproduct, like gets through the liver and then excreted through your kidneys, and it shows up in your urine, it had to be in your blood to begin with.
Right. But your body uses ketones. And then like as your body uses ketones, the longer that happens, you become fat adapted. So you're using them, not peeing them out.
Oh, that's
So
so
like,
interesting.
yeah. So
How do you tell? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, it's Heather. So I have two comments. One, how do you tell that you're so-called fat adapted?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like at what point, how do you know that you're at that stage? And then my other one was just a comment when you're talking about, not just doing the macros because there's other things that go into it. When I first started, I was kind of scared of it because I'm like, oh God, if I don't do this right and like be very strict with it,
Mm-hmm.
I can see myself having like my arteries clogged and I'm just going to get fatter and fatter because I'm eating all the cheese and, whatever. But I'm on week 12 now. And I think that point of just thinking that if I don't do it exactly right, because it's so, a chemical balance kind of, that has kept me on the straight and narrow with this. afraid to kind of screw up.
Okay.
So that was like kind of, I scared myself into doing it right and not messing up.
No, those are great points and great questions. Okay, so I love the keto diet, but like my training is in primal nutrition. So like, which there's tons of foundations that go into it. So like you'll always hear about me talking about sleep and play and keeping your stress levels down and using your brain and not having poisonous, which would essentially be like inflammatory foods and stuff and chemicals and stuff like that. So being afraid of not doing the keto diet right is totally understandable, but I love keto mainly because it's a low carb diet, which is how your body's genetically designed to function with ketones in its system. So you're not going to mess up. It really just comes down to like reverse engineering, like what's the point of you doing keto? Like what's your health goals? I like we put labels on the keto diet and we're doing the keto diet, but like what's your end goal? Like for me, I'm doing the keto diet, eating keto foods and drinking exogenous ketones because I need to keep my inflammatory system response down. I need to have crazy laser focus. And there's just a lot of different factors that go into it. So you're not going to mess up if you really are eating. Sorry, I'm shutting my
I'm looking around going, okay,
no,
where's
it's my fault. Sorry. So I guess again, I like reverse engineering it, and then drinking those exogenous ketones are your insurance to get to those, to get to your health goals. So like putting the label of like, I'm doing the keto diet, like obviously we all do keto, but that's why I also say like there's the hard way and the easy way. So the hard way to the ketogenic diet to get ketones in your system to get to your health goals is by doing all those macronutrients. But if you are trying to get to your health goals in lieu of the ketogenic diet, but you're drinking exogenous ketones, you're going to get there faster, but you can still eat keto foods with or without exogenous ketones and then keep your stress low and everything like that and still achieve your health goals. It's just going to take a little bit longer. Does that explain that?
Yeah, no, totally. And like I said, it was in the very beginning before I started, listening in on everything and reading about it, that it was kind of intimidating, but now it kind of makes sense and all the science behind it. So no, it's great. It's been one of the easiest things kind of to do, actually.
Right. Yeah. And
the support group is even better.
The what?
But just having the support group. I mean, when we buddied up with people, my buddy who's on, we've been like hitting it off like crazy. So it's good. It's keeping us on track, right, Misty? She's probably muted.
I'm glad. So yeah, just like, I guess just revert. So, and then like when you are fat adapted, that just essentially means like you're let me try and think of like the best way to explain it. So for me, I ate a cannoli, right? Which is like a little bit of gluten and just in like the shell. And then I add like the cannoli filling is some sugar and then a little bit of fat. I actually stayed in ketosis, not high, but I still stayed in ketosis because my body sugar wasn't going into my fat stores and my liver was like not absorbing it. So would I say I'm fat adapted? Yeah, because like I can have a higher tolerance of carbs now because I've been on ketosis for a very long time. Does that make sense? And then it would go off of your like heavier feelings and stuff. Barb, do you have like the fundamental definition? Is that what you're looking up?
I was just going to look up, see an index fat adapted. See
yeah, that's what I was going to do too. Yeah, and then I just go like, and that's the thing. It's like everyone wants to be fat adapted, but like that's why I just teach like don't stress on if you're fat adapted. Just like go towards your end goal, if that makes any sense. I know that like is a horrible sciencey definition. This is why I rely on Sarah, because I can understand it, but I can't regurgitate it.
I got a couple of questions. This is Michelle.
Sure. What's
up? So by what you just explained to me, does that mean that if you have a high dark purple color on those pea strips, that your body is not using the ketones as well as it does when you're fat adapted, and those are just being excreted? Because your goal is to not have that?
No, your goal is to have that.
Your goal? I'm confused. Sorry. What was the question?
So I know that you want your dipstick, or whatever you want to call it, to be dark. That shows that you have more ketones, right? That you're expelling.
But
you're
eventually
saying,
you want it to be clear, because then that would mean that you're fat adapted. So like, here's the definition of keto adapted per the thing. When you're keto adapted, your body's transitioned primarily from using glucose as a fuel source. Once you're adapted, you'll start to see changes in satiety, hunger, and even cognitive. And that's what I meant by like going on your focus. So yeah.
What page are you on? What page is that on, Mandy?
That's on 356. So when your body's keto adapted, you have transitioned from being a sugar burner to a fat burner. When you transition over from a sugar burner to a fat burner, that means that you are pretty much no longer peeing ketones. You are using them.
And one more question.
Sure,
I don't know that it relates to anything that we're talking about right now, but I have a lot of people that are interested in the product because they see what it's done for me, but they're like, do I have to follow a ketogenic diet for it to work?
No.
So will they get results even though they're not following a ketogenic diet?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know what to tell them, because I don't do that. I done it like a low carb, like Gracie said first, was doing like a low carb diet, which I lost quite a bit of weight on. Then I added these to it, which has helped.
So I think that's a conversation like better suited at like some other point with like me, you, and your sponsor. I just don't want this to be a product discussion. I just was, because people know that I use exogenous ketones, but in short, you can still take exogenous ketones and still waver from the ketogenic diet. I'm gonna mute everyone, and then can you guys just mute your background if you're not muted? Thank you. So that's kind of why like I could eat burritos sometimes, but then drink a drink. So we can talk about like how you need to talk to your customers and stuff like that at some point. I just talk about exogenous ketones on this call because it's everyone on here knows that I use them, and just making the correlations, but not like a product-based call.
That's fine. I just didn't know what to really say to them, because I'm like,
well, I would definitely direct that with like whoever you're working with on.
Okay. Thanks.
Mandy?
Yeah.
I was going to say, I can't imagine somebody eating just a typical diet high in carbs and being able just to drink the endogenous ketones and be able to be in ketosis. But to me that doesn't make sense. But maybe that is not, can somebody eat a real high carbohydrate diet, just take it and then drink in the ketones and be in ketosis?
Yes. Okay. I mean, if it's coming up for other people, I just don't want, sorry, Michelle, I just didn't want everyone to like come on here and feel like it's a product-based call. So that's where I was going. But if everyone else is kind of on that same page, like wondering how it works, and we can discuss it. So basically, like when you drink exogenous ketones, like everyone knows I eat Chipotle burritos. I wish they gave me $1 every time I said Chipotle. So like, you know how earlier I was saying like you're drinking beta hydroxybutyrate, right? Mm-hmm. So like you're drinking that ketone. The definition clinically based on, I forget whatever page it's on here. The definition of, there's two different types of ketosis: nutritional ketosis and clinical, or by definition, ketosis. So ketosis by definition is elevated blood ketone levels, or elevated ketone levels in the blood. Nutritional ketone, and you can get there by drinking ketones, and that is how you get into ketosis, by drinking beta hydroxybutyrate. So like clinically, your body is in ketosis. your body will use that beta hydroxybutyrate regardless of whether or not you eat carbs. So your focus will be up. You still will have suppressed appetite. It will feel like you are basically, by definition, in a fat adapted using ketones as a fuel. But what I tell people is you want to get into nutritional ketosis and not expect to drink a drink to help you achieve those health goals. Because, and some people do. Some people can drink the ketones and lose weight because they're reaping the benefits of being in like nutritional ketosis, but they're not really. So that's where all the confusion on the internet comes from. That's where everyone's like, well, it doesn't really get you in ketosis. Well, if you really think of the definitions between the two, that's where it comes from. So like nutritional ketosis is when your liver is producing ketones, and usually the only ways to get there are by fasting, which obviously you will restrict your carbs, or severely restricting your carbs and keeping your stress down and sleeping enough, and really just tracking, because all of your macros are going to be custom to you. So the longer and short of it, of like how long it takes you to get into ketosis, is very, very individual. So to get into nutritional ketosis, which now I'm in nutritional ketosis and I'm drinking ketones. So I'm in laser deep ketosis. But for most people, to eat keto foods and drink the ketones will help naturally produce the ketone production. So then you'll get on the dual fuel. That's why we talk about rebooting, because when you reboot, your body will produce nutritional ketosis and you're drinking ketosis. Then you're doing the dual fuel source, and you're already set up for success when you go into the ketogenic diet because your body's already producing them. Does that make sense? And feel free to anyone unmute.
Totally makes sense to me. I was going to say being in ketosis is just not about weight loss for me. It's about
for sure
how my body feels. I feel good when I don't eat a ton of carbs.
Oh, for sure. I agree.
The inflammation is way down. I wish there was a way to measure that inflammation. There is through
a CRP test from your doctor.
Yeah, there is through a blood test. But just knowing that my joints don't hurt and the swelling and all that, it's not just about, I guess what I want to say, if somebody still continues to eat a high carb and maybe they don't have the side effects from high carbs like I do, and so they're not concerned about inflammation and swelling and all that. But
well, that's where like eating towards your genetics is so important. So that's why I teach, like, for a lifestyle, you want to eat low carb. You don't want to be eating all day, every day, high carb. Like, your body can only really process 1/8 of a tablespoon of sugar correctly based on the way your genetics are designed. So if you're thinking about that little of sugar versus, like, again, Chipotle burritos, because that's my favorite reference, versus like, and all those chips and everything, like, that's so much carbs that your body has to produce to function. Now, is that okay on occasion? Sure. But if I do that every day, or if you're eating cake every day, or if you're having sugar in your coffee every day, regardless of what, like, if you don't have weight loss or inflammation issues, your genetics are eventually going to express incorrectly in forms of any health condition. Most health conditions are because of an over carbohydrate diet. And then Misty says, so basically if an oops day, you can drink a keto OS and it won't mess you up bad. Yeah, so that's why ideally, like right now I'm going straight through for as long as I can, because I, like Gracie, have like huge inflammation issues that I'm trying to keep down. I did an extended fast and I can really feel the difference compared to like what I am now versus what I was. Yeah. You can talk, Grace. I jam on.
Oh no, you know what? You are so the expert, and you have a much better way of regurgitating all this information than I do, because I am truly the student.
I try, and I don't want you guys to think I don't know what I'm doing. It's just like, and that's why I talk to Sarah a lot, or bring Sarah on, because like she has a beautiful way of doing it, and like I can understand it and I can tell you yes, no, or whatever, but like definitions and biology and like all that stuff, no. I'm more like the nutrition expert. Sarah's the process expert. So like I can tell you like why you should or shouldn't eat that in terms of a biology like breakdown process, but like the term fat adapted, like I know what it means, but like me regurgitating it is like well, I think it just means when whatever. So yeah. And then Heather says she likes the term dual fuel. So that's that. I mean, that's pretty much like chapters 1 through 3. I mean, we can go into chapter 1 through 3, like, or 3, like what your plates are. Like, that's why I teach. I think Ryan said something cool. I forgot what else does anyone have questions or anything so far? You guys getting value?
I just had a comment.
Sure.
I feel like I'm talking a lot on here.
It's okay.
That's what we're doing this for, so, chime in.
I did notice that once I started doing this and with the ketones, like I had these cookies I had bought for Christmas, and I said, well, I was going to give myself like a cheat day. I didn't even like them. It is so weird.
Sugar tastes are definitely way different, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was like looking so forward to eating those, and they tasted like crap.
But that's a good thing. You're paying attention to what your body is saying.
Yeah.
Oh, I really don't like that, which, I totally get it because I am a sugarholic. I love sweets. I don't really care that much about carbs like potato chips or potatoes or, burritos or, lasagna. Man, my thing is if it's got chocolate and sugar and, any kind of dessert you could imagine, I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'm there. And when I'm really in my zone of eating lean and green, and I take a bite of something like that, I totally get what you mean because it tastes disgusting.
It's weird how it just changes how stuff that you used to eat doesn't even taste the same. Like I used to eat crackers and cookies all the time, and like my husband's not doing this with me, which is fine, but he completely supports me. I have a pantry full of nothing but crackers and chips that I used to eat every night, and they're just sitting there. And that was like a reality for me to see all that stuff just sitting there.
Well, you should be celebrating that you're not eating that.
Oh, I am, but it was like, wow, I used to eat all that crap. I mean,
does your husband eat those things?
Not much at all.
Why don't you donate them to a food pantry?
Well, most of them have been thrown out.
Okay. I was going to say, you don't have to have them sitting there.
No, but it was a good wake up for me to see that.
So just a little mindset thing has nothing to do with keto, because like that's kind of what I teach too in my groups, like mindset stuff and like cleansing and like clearing. Like I think that would be like super, like, because by you holding on to that, even though it's like you're not really holding on to it mentally, you're probably still holding on to like your old way of life. I think it would be like really good for you to just do like literally like a ritual, like just go in there and throw it out and be like, this is my old way. Thank you. No, just like I'm not really into like really Zen kind of cleansing stuff, but like I just purged my whole house today. Like this morning, I just went through everything. And the reason why you do this is because you make room for new things, right? So like by you cleansing all that out and just throwing it away, that's your past. Like it's a physical representation of like you throwing out your past. And, that doesn't mean you can't replace it at some point on a healthier level, but like you just physically putting that in the trash is like saying goodbye to it. So
I agree.
You know what too is that the last few months with the holidays and everything, and I feel like I've done super good over the most difficult time of the year. And then every time I see the candy or, the things that I used to eat and it's still around because other people eat it, It just makes me feel more proud of myself because I did make it through the most difficult time. Even Halloween, I used to like candy, chocolate bars, all that, believe me. And it's like, I made it through and I feel so good about it because I did it. So if I can get through those months, the rest of the year is going to be cake. Well, not literally.
So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. I think this is like a great way to like connect every week too. Just like, yeah, we're doing the Keto Bible like step by step, but we're also like, you know, connecting on a, like a more personal level. So I love this. Okay, so one thing in chapter 2, I think like gets grazed over, but I think it would really help you guys to like understand. And if you didn't get there yet, that's okay. I'm just gonna do like a quick like short explanation. Like obviously, so the ketogenic diet, everyone thinks that it's just like a fad diet. Well, like that's a lot of the opposition that I hear, especially because like Kim Kardashian lost like 70 pounds or whatever she did, and because she used the keto diet, or like Tom Brady and like LeBron James all eat keto, right? I'm looking for this graph. But it's been around since the 1920s to like help kids with seizures. And they like started fasting kids with that. So like when you fast, obviously you develop ketones. And then it kind of just goes in through on page 24, just like the entire how ketones and ketosis came about. And then I guess what my point is how the low fat hysteria.
Oh gosh, I remember that.
So back when Eisenhower had his first heart attack, research was trying to figure out like why and how it happened. Well, basically this guy Ansel Keys like did this whole world study of high fat diets in different countries, right? But like how he manipulated his data was by leaving out the fact that like high fat and carbs were the reason why heart issues were happening. So if you read the whole thing, it just basically goes through why that's not the case and like how selection bias happens, and like how there's like a cool graph on page 30 about how like the research can be taken out of context. So like how many times have you guys watched something on TV that says like a recent study has come out saying blah 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 blah? Well, anyone can manipulate studies. And what was eye-opening for me is when I saw this guy, Dr. David Diamond. He was at a Keto Academy. He did this whole presentation about pharmaceutical statin drugs. And statin drugs, for those that don't know, are just like like cardiac and blood pressure medicine, I believe. And he was basically showing an ad that says like this statin, some sort of statin, I forget what it was called, can help reduce heart attacks in people for like 98% of the time. But if you go and look at the data research, the way they did the math was basically like ridiculous. Like it was manipulated to like have that number because legally, like, yeah, they could say that number, but it's not really what that number really is. It really just means there was no change. But because it was like one extra person and they can manipulate the data, it was the same thing. So it was just the same thing with that high fat, low carb. So anytime you guys have any opposition, just have people go to Dr. David Diamond or go to this, just like this page. So I don't know. It's just like about manipulation of data and stuff like that. So like not every study that you read, unless you're really reading like the actual published stuff, make sure that you just pay attention. And, you know, obviously like hit me up. I'm happy. I loved arguing with people just based on science stuff. I might not be able to explain whatever, but yeah, Dr. David Diamond, he's awesome. And he actually like he formulated this like I forget the acronym, but and he'll talk about it at Epic. So like we're going to an event at the end of the month for Prove It. And it's pretty epic. Like he's formulated this like cardiologist clan basically of like all these people that agree with like high fat is actually okay. So there's that. And then also what I love is like the studies back here. Like you guys can Google any of the studies that are in this book and read it for yourself. A lot of it's going to be in medical, but like the synopsises, if that's even a word, you can read at the top and kind of get like an overview of like what this study was about and like read it for yourself. So like,
and then the chapter summaries chapter summaries at the end of each chapter just hits upon the key points and just really wraps it up really nicely too.
Yeah. So that was chapter 2. Just want to touch on it because I know that that's like a lot of opposition for a lot of people. Like I get hit up probably at least twice a day with like, well, my friends think like, and the same thing goes into you, Heather. You were like afraid like to eat cheese and whatever because it's very weird, but like eat your bacon. Now, does that mean you can eat bacon all day, 1,500 calories?
Oh.
You know, it's just the misconception of what the keto diet is. A lot of people think, okay, well, I can eat bacon and butter and pork rinds all day long, which you can.
That would be gross.
But if you have fat loss, like I can, because I don't have fat loss goals and I have inflammation reduction. But like if I'm eating bacon, butter, and pork rinds, I'm missing a whole area of like micronutrients, which obviously goes into electrolytes. But like you need those green leafy vegetables for like all the other nutrients that goes into it. So just keep in mind that and when I talk about like the perfect keto plate, which transitions into chapter 3, your macros are one thing. Your macros will be like custom to you, and like your macro ratios could be a certain amount. But what I'm talking about when you look at your plate ratio is different than your macro ratio. Your plate ratio should be 50 to 75% vegetables, and then a protein, and then topped with fat. Your calories from fat are obviously going to be more than those vegetables, which makes up the macronutrients, but your plate should really look nutritious and healthy and like have veggies, proteins, and fats on top.
So kind of like almost a perfect plate would be half a plate of broccoli, a little piece of chicken, and some avocado slices.
Perfect.
To be, you know, the good fats, not the bacon fat, but you know, okay.
Hey, you can make
at least 4 ounces of protein, I would think. I mean, 4 ounces, if you think about it, the size of your fist.
Yeah.
It's a healthy protein.
Yeah, and fatty protein. Like everyone steers away from like carnita, pork butt and pork shoulder, and like fatty cuts of like not filet mignon, it's not really fatty, but like I don't know, your beef, that's a fatty cut.
Underbelly pork. That's a perfect example. That has a lot of fat on it.
Which is so good for you. So like you can do like a dual fat kind of like doing butter with broccoli, but like that's what I'm saying. Like when I teach keto and like in my private groups that like I run for like a course that I run, like I do teach keto eating because it is low carb and we call it keto because it is keto, but not stressing on those macros, but stressing on how to eat the perfect plate is way more important than like sitting on your phone and like trying to dial it in, because there's other components. So like if you're trying to lose weight, you need to get your movement in, you need to get your sleep together. Like I can eat the perfect plate all the time, but I'm never going to control my inflammation if I'm not going to bed at an appropriate time. So it all is like works synergistically together. So
hey, in the last few weeks I actually started not watching TV at night, and I got an aromatherapy alarm clock with the little nice lights, and I've been actually going to sleep with that. Yeah. And I really do feel a difference that I'm getting a better night's sleep, which that was one of my goals for this year. I'm
trying, but my business coach is in Australia, so I need to stay up late.
I work 3 12-hour night shifts and 1 8-hour every other week. So
I guess another point in the chapter 3 that like talks about like basically blood sugar is why I like really hone in on like why you shouldn't be eating like maltodextrin and like sucralose, is because like your insulin response is like what you need to keep down, which is true fundamental like keto principles as well. So just because a label says sugar free or looks like it has the nutrition facts of 000, you really need to be keeping those ingredients like in check. So like pork rinds, for example, you need to turn those over and really look at those ingredients. Like some of them have maltodextrin in them. Like I have a bag I took a picture of a bag at the grocery store that's like, it's all fillers. But like if you're eating like pork rinds that are just pork fat, that's very different. So really just keeping those ingredients in check is like really important as well. And then I guess.
Did anyone, like, I don't really care for avocados, but did they find some way that they could eat them where they like them? Anybody else?
Do a lot with avocados. You can use avocado in sugar-free pudding.
So sugar-free pudding's not keto.
Oh, scratch that.
Sorry.
Okay.
You
can make avocado milkshakes, like with avocado and heavy whipping cream. Looking at Mandy to see if whipping cream.
Yeah, whipping cream's okay. Sorry. Yeah.
So you can add sugar-free flavorings. No, you can't.
No. So that's why I say like, yeah. So this is okay. We can talk about misconceptions of keto a little bit more. So a lot of people, that's what I was saying. So like sugar-free additives, right? If it says sugar-free on it and it's a substitute for something normally with sugar, for instance, Jell-O, right? If you take a version of Jell-O and make it sugar-free, the insulin response is the same, whether you eat the regular Jell-O or you eat the sugar-free. It's the mislabeling, or it's the labeling that makes it sugar-free, but you want to remember that the response is different. So when you, like if you look, I actually have it somewhere, I'll post it in our group. So maltodextrin and sucralose are, I probably say those wrong, but those are two additives, the number ones in Powerade Zero, in Coke Zero, in Diet Coke, in Atkins bars that are labeled whatever.
Low carb, high protein.
Yeah. So those ingredients are awful because your insulin will spike when you consume them. The point of keto is to keep your insulin response down. So people are like, oh, I'm eating keto because it's zero sugar. Well, no, you might as well eat the candy bar because your insulin response is still the same. So it's not keto. That's why I drill in on that.
I found that to be the most interesting thing because I had no idea about that. And that's really helped me kind of curb my Diet Coke issue. Right. But I had no idea that your insulin spiked with those. So that was very enlightening.
Good, I'm glad. So, and on top of that, people are like thinking that they're doing keto, but they're not eliminating the carb cravings. So if you're finding that you're just like, I need carbs, I'm still doing this, well, it's because you're having those ingredients that, again, still cause that insulin response. So it's still making you want that sugar because you're just tricking your brain and having those chemicals in there to have that flavor. But when it breaks down in your body, that response is the same. Same thing with like low carb tortillas, right? So that's just tricky labeling, right? So everyone's like, okay, well, I can have a tortilla. I'm going to fill up on those. Well, there might not be maltodextrin and sucralose in there. However, if you're eating gluten has an insulin response, which defeats the purpose of low carb. So you might as well have a Chipotle burrito because the response is still the same. It might not be as a high of a response, but you're having a response which derails the whole process and continually makes you want to eat more carbs, even though you're eating a low carb something.
And I think, you know what, and like I said, I'm just learning this too. So like the Robert Atkins, low carb, high protein, and we look at net carb value. Correct. Now, see, I wouldn't have thought, to me, in the past, when I ate lean and green, I occasionally had a low carb tortilla, because I look at the net carb and think, okay, that's only like, say, 4 grams. I'm still going to be, between my 20 and 25 grams of carbs per day. But you're saying that even though you can look at the carbohydrate count in a food, if it has like the other additives like the maltodextrin and sucralose, you should have just ate a regular one.
So it's just, because they're like, just because it fits my macros doesn't mean that you're not having an insulin response. So
that's really interesting.
Yeah. So it's just like, I can have a low carb tortilla to keep my 20 grams, but if I'm still having a response because I'm eating gluten, I will have an inflammatory response, one, and I will have an insulin response. Because one, gluten, most people, 90% of people, because the way our wheat is grown, have reactions, which is gluten sensitivity and gluten celiac disease and stuff like that is all an issue. So those responses is the biochemical response to eating the food. Just because the label is okay and fits your macros doesn't mean that that's okay. So like, in order to do that with or without exogenous ketones, keeping that plate clean, which is why, again, why I teach clean, and which is why it's very easy to which is why KISS keto is eat meats, eat veggies, and eat fats. And if you stick to those food groups, you won't ever have to count macros, because you're going to achieve your health goals because you're eating real food that doesn't cause a response.
Right.
So, I hope that clears it up. I guess I should probably do a live on that.
No, that's good. That's a good one, because a lot of people, I don't think, realize that.
Yeah, and there's a lot.
What other kind of foods are out there, or not even foods, but what other things are out there too, like that you wouldn't think would have an insulin response that does?
Tomato sauce comes to mind.
Oh, okay, so there goes pizza.
Questions. Does it mean that you can never have those things, or can you have like an occasional, like if you're, say, I'm making a pizza crust out of cauliflower and almond flour and eggs. If I want to throw on, 2 tablespoons of organic tomato sauce.
We have to check your ingredients, right? So real Italians use sugar in, a lot of the canned stuff has sugar in it because one, as excuse me, I got a keto burp. As Americans, we're just so used to having that sweet taste, right? So you have to that's where the labeling and the ingredients comes in, right? So you can have a 000, but if those ingredients are not good, that's fine. But I can have peanut butter, powdered peanut butter that has cane sugar in it, but if I only have this much in a fat bomb, it's not going to really raise my insulin. And that's that's the point. So you really just want to eat clean. And of course, if you're spreading that tomato sauce all over and it has a little bit of sugar in it and you're eating cauliflower, it's not really going to raise it a little bit, but it's not going to be as crazy as if you eat sugar-free Jello,
So what I just blows me out of the water, because to me, sugar-free Jello was like a dessert I could have with whipped cream on top of it.
No, sorry.
And now it's no.
So what I would suggest in terms of that is I use if I need a sweet treat, well, obviously it's ketones, but I don't lead with that all the time. So you can do canned coconut milk. Mm-hmm. But make sure you watch the ingredients, but the additives, especially someone very new, I'm very, very clean. I eat very, very, very clean most times, but obviously we live in a world where sometimes that's not available, and I live in Myrtle Beach now and I'm very limited. But canned coconut milk in the fridge for at least 24 hours will start to harden, and as that hardens, it turns into a thick whatever. You can you can spoon that out and drain the liquid, or keep the liquid for a coffee or whatever you want,
or a sauce or soup base or something.
Put it in a food processor and then use like a little bit of stevia or pure or whatever to sweeten it up. And there's like a mousse, that's really good.
Or you could add half an avocado.
Yep, there you go. That's where the avocados are good for.
Mm-hmm.
So it's extra fats and, it just really dials in. But if you're trying to have a sweet treat, that's your body saying you need more fat. So if you're craving something sweet, your body's actually your body actually needs fat. Because if you're having that glucose response or glucose craving, you want to kill it with fat.
So is that where the MCT oil would come in?
Yeah.
Can you talk more about those? So
medium chain triglycerides, I like in the morning because one, it helps ketone production in nutritional ketosis. And two, it really just gets your cognitive function like going. Like it gives you increased energy because your body's going to burn that MCT first. And then it's going to, want carbs depending on what your diet is. But like it really just is helpful for just getting those fats in an easier way. And it's like a very like long chain fat, the way it breaks up. So it's just good to have, or you can just put it on your veggies. But like I don't like it because it has like a coconutty flavor most times. I don't know how people get around it.
I would love that.
Yeah, so, I mean, some people do, but like I personally cook with refined coconut oil. So I don't use any olive oil. I use all refined coconut oil and fry all my stuff in there, or I use bacon grease or like ghee because I have to go dairy free now. Just very.
Why not olive oil?
So olive oil,
virgin cold pressed olive oil.
So there's smoke points on every oil.
Right.
And I forget the response. I will need to look it up, but they just say that the smoke point in terms of like breaking down that oil will burn quicker if it's like a lower smoke point versus a coconut oil, their smoke point's higher. So you're going to actually get some of that nutrients while you're cooking with it. It will absorb into your foods.
But extra virgin olive oil, like if I wanted to make a dressing out of it,
perfect,
or a salad, is fine.
Yeah, but if you like, so there's.
But when you're cooking with it, you want to go with the higher.
Right.
Yeah, I totally get that. Okay.
So cooking oil and like drizzling. So like even so if I'm like making baked broccoli, right? So I will actually the baked broccoli, like I'll drizzle olive oil on that. But if I'm cooking fried Brussels sprouts, I will layer my pan with like a good amount of olive oil and then fry the Brussels sprouts in there versus,
roasting them with virgin
olive
oil.
Yeah, just because of the smoke points and the nutrition facts. So who else has questions? There's people on. Don't be afraid to ask or type them in the chat.
And remember, everybody, there is no such thing as a dumb question.
Oh, yeah. I might give you dumb answers sometimes, but fuddle on my words. But that's just my style,
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi, my name's Elia.
Hi.
I have a question. Well, I have two questions. What is the difference between, what did you call it, refined coconut oil and unrefined?
Yeah. So basically when you do refined coconut oil, that does not have any coconutty flavor in it. It is like more processed. So the nutrients are going to be lower because it is processed, but it's perfect for cooking oil, like cooking, if you don't want that coconutty flavor. So you can get the refined for that. But then if you want like a face mask or like something sweet to put in your coffee or, just overall multi-purpose coconut oil for every day, you can actually use the unrefined virgin would be the correct type to use. But it really just depends on personal preference. So if you're making like a Thai dish, you would want to use the coconutty one depending on what you're using. But like for me, if I'm cooking broccoli in the pan, I'm going to want my broccoli to be non-coconutty. So
okay, so unrefined is like less processed, more true to its original form. Okay.
Yep.
And then I know we kind of already moved on from the topic of the ketosis in the blood. But I have a question about it. Can I still ask?
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So I've done a low carb lifestyle for about 5 years.
Okay.
And I just in August started true keto diet. And I haven't really dabbled with the blood stick or the pea sticks, because when I read about it online, it says, the when you become fat adapted, it doesn't really show on a pea strip because your body's using those ketones, right? So how do I bought the meter for a blood test, which hasn't come in yet, but I'm like, how do I know I'm producing enough ketones? How do I know that I am reaping the full benefit of being, in a keto diet, fat adapted state?
Perfect question. So that would be anywhere between 0.5 and 7 millimolars on your reading.
That's crazy. Okay.
So likely you won't be excreted. Like I hate urine strips. Like I've had urine strips before where I tested them and like my millimolars were like 5 something, but then I would pee on them and then it would be clear. So like, or it would, I don't know. I just don't like them in general because a lot of like environmental issues could like cause them to be inaccurate. That's why in the groups everyone's like, well, it doesn't matter, you're in dehydration, blah. Well, it's like, no, they're just inaccurate tests because you're testing an exhaust, if that made sense. I don't know if you caught the analogy before. But like if you're doing a blood meter, anything between 0.5 and 7 would be optimal.
Okay, so if you are nutritionally in ketosis and you don't use exogenous ketones,
yep,
what would you say like an average read on the meter would be? Like, I know the range to me sounds pretty wide, 0.5 to 7, but what would it be if you're not doing the ketones?
So a fasted state, so like I tested mine today. I'm in the middle of my reboot, right? So and I didn't have any exogenous ketones at all since like probably 7 p.m. last night. And then I tested them around maybe 9 this morning. So it's a good, like, whatever the math is, good gap. I'm a marketing and whatever brain. I don't do math. But I was at a 5.6. So I had no ketones. And that's on the high end, right? But like someone who's trying to do nutritional ketosis without supplementation, I'd say a 0.5, anywhere between a 0.5 and a 2 being highest without exogenous ketones would be pretty optimal. But you have to remember that too. And then I forget where, there's this section in the book that was pretty awesome that talked about chasing ketones, but I don't remember what thing it was, because it would just make this funny analogy of like fighting your family for being the highest read, right? So you have transporters in the body that are required, that everyone has different types of transporters. So you might have more transporters, meaning that your blood ketone levels would be way higher, regardless if you're fasting or using exogenous ketones, versus me, who might not have as much. So like my 0.5, and I could be 0.5 and feel laser focused and super deep into ketosis, but I'm only doing a 0.5. So
page 19, I think, shows, has the insulin resistant cute little diagrams.
No, it's this like, I forget where it is. I was reading off of it the other day. I'll find it and give you guys the note. But does that make sense? Because you have like those transporters are what is also going to contribute to your level.
Yeah.
So like, don't worry. Like obviously the only thing that you need to be focused on is a 0.5 and a 7. But like, if you're not using exogenous ketones and you haven't been intermittent fasting or fasting in a longer term in terms of like a reboot or whatever, your range is gonna probably be lower just because you're not, like, it's really hard to produce enough ketones to like get that high regardless of how many transporters you have in your body. But because you are doing the ketogenic diet and testing with blood, it should be between a 0.5 and I'd say 2.
It might be on page 55. Is that chasing ketones?
Yeah.
Keto concept.
And there's this, it's like MCT transporters, but I don't remember how to freaking.
Oh, yeah. Page 55.
Yeah. So like there's a difference between MCT oils, like medium chain triglycerides, and then the doxy monocarbocyclic. I can't say that word. This is where Sarah said it. But it's basically like transporters in your body that need to basically uptake the ketones. So like they'll attach to the ketone molecule and raise your blood ketone levels. And depending on how many of those transporters you have, will elevate your blood ketone levels because those will attach to it. So for me, I just might not be as good as like someone else. But like testing and fighting over
it's more genetics.
Yeah. Like, or just like, you know, depending on what stage you are or like what's going on or how much stress, like there's so many factors that go into it versus just like having elevated blood ketone levels. And they do like a really good like analogy of, basically they say, imagine you're driving your car through a Lincoln Tunnel in New York City. All the cars in the tunnel represent ketone bodies. And then the tunnel itself is the MCT transporter, facilitating their uptake in the cell. So i.e. the city is the cell. So basically the MCT transporter is the tunnel and then the car is the ketone. There's a limited number of cars that can go in the tunnel at one time. So if you're trying to travel through that tunnel on a midday week where hundreds of cars are backed up, one logical fix would be to build a second tunnel right next to it, doubling the amount of cars that can get into the city at the same time. Similarly, bodies can increase the transporters in order to allow ketones to uptake into the cells. One way to do this is to increase your exercise. So if you need more MCT transporters and you need more ketones, then exercise to feel the benefits, right? It boosts the body's capacity to utilize those ketones and uptake them into the skeletal muscle. So then that's pretty much just the summary. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, which leads me to one new question.
Sure.
So I bought XCT oil from the Bulletproof company.
Yeah, I love brand. Yeah, that's a good one.
And, you know, but I still am like, can I use MCT oil or, you know, is one more preferable? I don't really understand the difference between MCT oil and XCT oil. I understand what's the difference between straight coconut oil and MCT oil, but I don't know what the difference is between these MCT and XCT oils.
It's probably I actually don't know what that product is. Like an XCT, I've never heard of that. It must be something that's like, sorry, I'm just trying to get my thing before my charger before I cut out on you. In short, I think David Asprey is the formulator of Bulletproof, and he has a whole line of things. So he might have some sort of XCT oil, which might be a derivative of an MCT or a coconut. It just really is the fatty chain that is broken down, which is just basically how the molecules are formulated together and then how they are broken down in the body.
Okay.
So I just feel I'll look it up for you. I'll just give it a Google and like let you know. So just send me a message and I'll check it out. And then give you like more of a laser, more focused answer. I just don't know exactly.
Hey, Mandy, a quick question on our chat. Does our chat save?
Yeah.
Is that video? So
I mean, there's only the three dual fuel, Wilson, David Diamond, and then the MCT, XCT. But no, our chat won't save in the recording.
Oh, all right.
I just need to get my thing, guys. Hold on. Do you love my outfit?
Hi, Jason. See you popped on. Welcome.
Who?
Jason. Do you have
please.
any questions? Don't be shy.
Oh, I was muted. No, I haven't bought the book, but
it's okay.
I'm cheating. I'm cheating. So I'm getting the book by listening to you ladies while you're doing it, and just figuring it out. So
no worries. And I will get back to you, Jason. I'm sorry. I have like a systematic, I have to answer like my messages and everything like in a weird way. So
Jennifer asked me if you got back, and I said you're a busy woman. Give her time. So
thank you. I'll get you hooked up as soon as I can. Just a lot of juggling.
Oh, I get you.
But yeah, guys. Is that everything? I have to get going soon because I need to hop
So
on.
are we gonna do this again at 3:00 every Sunday? And
that would be pretty cool if we wanted.
Yeah, and what chapter or chapters are we gonna do so I can be more prepared?
Oh, well, I mean, we didn't really go like individually, like
I know.
so it's totally fine. I don't know, 3 and 4, because like the deeper we get in, the more it's like sciencey. So like I don't want you guys to like be overwhelmed and everything like that. So do you want to do chapter 3 and chapter 4?
You know what? The other thing is too, I noticed like with chapter 3, I looked at the index for one of the questions that we had, and chapter 7 answers sort of backs up a lot in chapter 3. So maybe it's we don't have to go chapter by chapter, but maybe like we could do chapter 3 and 7, because chapter 7 talks a lot about the science of cooking and the protein and the fats and the carbs. So they seem to me like they kind of go hand in hand. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the only issue is like a lot of people haven't read it, so I think they're using this like kind of chat as like a motivation to like, okay, I'm gonna knock out this week, like more of an accountability, like I want to knock out 2 chapters.
Well, so that's what I'm saying. So like chapter 3, and I'm just putting it out there, chapter 3 and 7 seem to kind of tie into each other.
Okay.
So I mean, whatever you guys think is fine.
I'm open to whatever.
But you know, let's just like throw it out there to the group and take a look and see like if chapter 3 and chapter 7 kind of like, if you guys think they kind of go hand in hand with each other, maybe those are the 2 that we can focus on next time. Let's just put it out there as a question. Or if people want to take it, you know, chapter 3 and 4, we can do that too.
I like chapter 3 and 7. Like you said, they do kind of seem to go together, so that would be good.
Okay, let's do that for next week, and then just go like bounce back if we need to.
And then hit 4 the following week.
Yeah, that works. Because there's a lot of like, I mean, obviously, because like once we get into like the later chapters, it's like applications of exogenous ketones and like medical issues and things like that. So we can definitely like bounce around more topic based versus like chapter per chapter. So
yep,
I'm fine with that. And I want to eat everything in this freaking book.
I know, it all looks so good, right?
Yeah. Ooh, Irish cream pistachio squares. Okay. Well, yeah. So I have to jump on another call at 5, and I probably should shower at some point today. So,
well, thank you so much, Mandy, for coming on and being a part of this.
No problem. This is super exciting. I like it. I obviously like talking about this stuff. So, we will catch y'all next week.
All right. Thank you.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.